What you saw a second ago were the final moments of a light and friendly sparring match that took place at a Chinese martial arts tournament a little bit ago. If it didn't look light or friendly, that's because it was really neither, and we're going to be talking about that today. So over the summer, I was looking for a bunch of different things to do for this YouTube channel, and I had an idea about a series. Now, when I was younger, I ended up watching a very, very popular martial arts TV show called Fight Quest. In this show, there were two guys who would go around the world learning a bunch of different obscure and not so obscure martial arts, and at the end of the week that they would end up training, they would end up partaking in a fight. Now, this was really cool to me, and a lot of people ended up liking that show. It was very popular, but it was a short-lived show, and because of this, I figured, you know what, there's a lot of other martial arts out there that they didn't end up covering in that show. Why don't I do something like that for my channel? So with that in mind, I ended up trying to enter into any martial arts tournaments for different arts that I've never trained in, and one of the first ones I ended up looking up was for Sanda. Now, if you don't know what Sanda is, it's a Chinese kickboxing martial art that was created in the 1970s, if I remember correctly. It was actually created by the Chinese government, and it was created after they realized that a lot of their traditional martial arts were just not up to scratch. They basically took kickboxing, added in a few Chinese traditional stylistic things, and they also added in takedowns, which is not really something you see from a striking martial art. Ever since I learned about Sanda, I've wanted to do it, but it's not really a big thing over here. There are places you can find that have it, but it's not nearly as pervasive as Muay Thai or boxing. So the video I originally intended to make was supposed to highlight Sanda as a martial art and really just show how cool it is and explain that I believe it should be a lot more widespread in the US than it is now. When I ended up deciding to participate in this tournament, that is what I wanted to be able to do, and that is what I still wanted to be able to do the entire time. However, it became very clear to me right away that I probably wasn't going to get to do that in the way that I felt that I should. 2 or 3 weeks after I entered the tournament, I checked the website and they had altered the rules so that not only would there be only light contact sparring, but there would also be no takedowns or throws allowed, which that's really what makes Sanda Sanda. If you don't have throws and takedowns, you don't really have Sanda, you just have kickboxing. But either way, I thought it'd still be cool. I thought it would be an interesting situation to be in, and plus it was going to be low risk because after all, they said it was going to be light contact, and they said it was going to be light contact a lot. Not only did it say that on the website, I had also ended up emailing them when it got closer to the tournament just to kind of confirm a couple of different things, and they had said repeatedly that it was going to be light contact to ensure that nobody got injured. Now, in addition to the light contact aspect, they also wanted us to have a ton of gear. And I'm talking gear that I normally wouldn't even use. They wanted us to have chest protectors. They wanted us to have headgear, which headgear is good to have, but I typically don't use it myself. And they also said on the website that they wanted us to have boots, or basically foot coverings. Now, I want to reiterate that not only did it say all of this on the website, but I also emailed these people to make sure that I had the proper equipment, and they told me that the 16-ounce boxing gloves that I use are only good for hard sparring, and that I needed to buy something that was going to be more suitable for light contact. Now, this specifically confused me a little bit because 16 ounces is quite a bit of padding. I would rather get hit with a 16-ounce glove than a 4-ounce glove, but they told me that I needed something lighter. So I ended up going on Amazon. I found something that I thought would work, and just to make sure, just to be absolutely sure, I ended up emailing them the link to that product. They ended up telling me that yes, it would be suitable. Now, the product that I had planned on buying was going to be a pair of basically karate point sparring gloves that don't even actually cover the entirety of the hand. And I did not like these things at all. They were awful. I still have them, but I don't know how I'm going to use them. I don't know why I would ever use them. But that's what they wanted for the tournament. I wasn't going to cause problems. I wasn't going to try and argue, so I bought them. Now, I'm really making it a point to talk about the gloves and the boots because this is going to come into play later. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about what happened when I showed up on the day. So I got there and I immediately tried to find the mat that the fights were going to be on. And I figured out which one it was going to be right away because it was a very rinky-dink setup. It was some puzzle mats on a hard gym floor with no other padding around them. Instead of having anything that was a little bit more legitimate, they had 4 chairs, one in each corner. and in between the chairs was some string, I guess you could say, that was loosely tied to the chairs to basically act as a bit of a boundary to let somebody know if they stepped off the mat. Now, this was extremely ghetto, all right? I think we are all aware of this, but I wasn't going to let that be the thing that made me decide that I didn't want to, because after all, it was going to be light sparring. How much do they really need? In addition to this, it's not like they probably have a budget for a legitimate ring or anything like that, so they're just trying their best. Now, the thing I noticed immediately after this was there was a group of kids, and I say kids because they looked to be about between the age of 16 and 20, that were in the corner. And they looked legit. Now, the reason I say they looked legit is because showing up to this tournament, I'm going to be honest with you, I really didn't expect there to be hardcore dudes there. I thought it was going to be a bunch of people who decided, oh, I do Tai Chi, I do Wing Chun, why don't I give an actual fight a chance? Why don't I try that? Because that's the kind of situation that those things end up being. When it's light contact like that, when there is a ton of equipment and a ton of regulation, that's the people that kind of end up showing up to those things. So when I ended up seeing these kids, I turned to my wife who had come with me that day and I was like, you know, those kids look legit. The way they're walking, the way they're dressed, they have their hands wrapped. And the way that their hands were wrapped was very interesting to me. Now, I didn't get a close look. However, it looked like their hands were wrapped to be a cast, not just tape to protect the wrist, but something to cover and harden the knuckles. Now, I'm not saying that that was the case. I'm saying that from afar, that's almost the way that it looked. And if you don't understand why that's such an important thing, you can go ahead and talk to Ramsey Dewey, who has a blind spot in his vision because of somebody who had a cast when they punched him. So I see these kids who are jumping around, you know, having a good time, whatever, la-di-da, and I immediately think to myself, that's two things that are a little bit weird to me. I'm a little bit uncomfortable now, but I'm not going to leave. I spent all this time coming here, I spent all this money, and I really, really want to do this. So just because there's a couple of things that are a little bit strange to me, I'm not just going to leave. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to check the place out. I'm going to check the situation out, and then I will decide if I am 110% going to take part. So time goes on and more people show up, and I notice as more people show up, there seems to be a clear distinction between the Sanda kids and everybody else. The Sanda kids are sitting there, they're laughing, they're joking, they seem to almost know what's going on. They seem to be very sure of themselves. And in addition to that, they seem to be pretty chummy with some of the people who are supposed to be officiating the tournament, which is a very, very strange thing. Everybody else who showed up, on the other hand, they really don't have any idea what's going on. They're just kind of lingering, as I was too. They're just looking around. Every time I hear one of these other people talk, they're talking about, oh yeah, it's going to be light contact today. It's going to be a light contact tournament. So as time goes on, I'm just getting more and more creeped out. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, all right, like, this is really, really strange. I've been in a situation before where people have tried to set me up, and I know what a setup looks like. And I don't want to say that this is a setup. I want to just say that this so far is it's all just some weird misunderstandings, and maybe I'm being hypervigilant, and maybe there's just a little bit of disorganization going on, but it's starting to look pretty fucking weird, dude. It's looking pretty damn weird. So we end up weighing in at some point, and I ended up weighing in around 230 pounds, which, yeah, I know, I'm a big boy right now. I gotta lose some weight. But there were two other guys who were about my size, and one of them was not affiliated with the Sanda team. The other one was affiliated with that Sanda team. So I immediately was like, all right, well, whatever, I'm sure it's going to be fine. Now, before I get to the matches, I want to talk about something that was interesting to me that ended up happening. And that was that there was a guy who I could really only describe as a Tai Chi grandpa. He looked to be in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. He was wearing the traditional Tai Chi garb. He ended up showing up and he wanted to take part. When he pulled out his gear, he pulled out the same kind of karate point sparring gloves that I ended up asking the tournament about, which they told me, yes, you should bring those. When he pulled those out, one of the officials from the tournament actually came over to him and told him that those would not do, that they were not okay to use. And I thought that was very interesting because, as I said, I had brought a pair of those and I had been explicitly told by the tournament that yes, those were the kind that I needed to use. Now that right there was just about the final straw, because at this point it's like, yo, even if this isn't on purpose, this is just so much of a shit show, I do not want to take part in this. But even with that, I still told myself, no, I spent all this time, I spent all this money coming here, all right? I'm gonna do this. Luckily for me, I had brought my 16-ounce gloves just in case, so I was gonna be all good. Now with that said, let's go ahead and talk about what happened during the matches. And I will say that I got footage of every match that I saw, but I didn't get every match in its entirety. So what I have is what you're seeing. So the first match that took place was between two little girls, and I have to say, they were like really, really good. Like I was impressed. The ability that they had to do things that adults don't was like insane. And I wanted to find their parents and like congratulate them, because I wish I started as early as that, and I wish I could have been that good when I was that young, because those girls, frankly, they could be world class when they get older. Now with that being said, these two little girls were going absolutely insane on each other. They were not holding back at all, and the ref was saying absolutely nothing about it. The thought in my head at the time was basically that maybe the ref was thinking that since these are two little girls, they probably couldn't do that much damage to each other, which is not how it works at all. But I figured maybe that's just what the ref was thinking. So the girls end up getting done, and I think it was declared a draw. But up next was a teenage boy and a teenage girl. I think they were about maybe 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. They ended up going at it. Now, the boy was holding back, because that's what a boy will typically do when going with a girl. But the girl was letting him have it. She was not holding anything back. Now, the thought in my mind there was that, oh, okay, the referee sees a girl beating up a boy, and he's not going to stop that. He's sitting here thinking, oh, he's tough enough to take it, and oh, girl power, girl power. And you know what? That's not cool either. That's not how that works either. However, I'm not the referee. I don't make the call. So I just kind of sat there like, that's really, really strange. I don't like that. But I'm still going to take part as of right now. Now, the third match is where I really decided that I was not going to be taking part in any of this on that day. The reason why I say this is because there was basically a dude who has never actually been in a fight in his life. He is a pure traditional Chinese martial artist versus one of the dudes from the Sanda team. And boy, was it ugly. Now, as you can see from the video, he is absolutely getting thrashed. It is insane what is going on here. This is very clearly a bully situation. And I felt so bad for the kid that I wanted to go over to his buddy who was with him and tell him, hey, tell your guy to throw a cross straight up the middle, because the other guy, he's not really protecting himself very well. He's basically wide open for it. If he throws a cross straight up the middle, he might end up knocking that dude out. Now, my plan originally was to go in between rounds and tell that guy so that he could go tell his boy, but it didn't end up going into a second round. I'm not sure if the referee stopped it or if he gave up. It kind of seemed like he gave up. And either way, like, it should have been stopped probably a lot sooner. So when this guy walked off the mat, I felt really, really bad for him. I'm not gonna lie. You could see in his face when he was getting hit that something changed. That was a traumatic experience for him, that he has never been hit in the face like that before. And it is really, really bad to have that happen to you in front of a crowd of 50 to 100 people. That is not the place that you want to have that experience. You want that in the gym where you know and trust everybody. So I go over to this dude and I ask him a few questions and I say, hey, have you ever been in a fight before? He's like, no, this is my first time. And I was like, oh, yeah. You know, that's not the worst thing in the world to have happen to you. It's good to get hit like that, but this is not the place where you want to get hit like that. And he turned to me immediately and said, yeah, I was expecting light contact. Now, his demeanor was very cheery. He was acting as though he was happy, but in truth, it was the shock of the moment. He did not know what happened. He didn't know why it happened or how. And really, he was just still trying to process everything. Now, little known to me, his buddy was up next, and I ended up actually distracting him. He was supposed to film his buddy's fight, but he missed most of the fight. So he and I are just talking about things, we're just doing our thing. He notices his buddy is up, and his buddy is getting thrashed immediately. The same story as him. That's when I ended up running back to my camera. He pulled out his camera, and I got the last bit of the fight that you ended up seeing in the first bit of this video. So at that point, I had basically decided, all right, we're getting out of here. I packed up my stuff and I started to go. I said bye to those guys that I spoke to, and I was walking out. Now, as I walked out, I turned around and I noticed who was up next. Tai Chi Grandpa. Now, he was still not allowed to use his karate point sparring gloves. However, one of the Sanda guys was nice enough to let him borrow his, I think maybe 8 or 10 ounce boxing gloves. Now, the second I saw this, I immediately just wanted to get out of there because I wanted absolutely, positively no part of the potential mauling of a geriatric Tai Chi guy. That is not something I wanted to be a part of at all. I didn't even want to see that. So I end up going back to where we were staying, and I sit there and I end up deciding, you know what, I'm gonna hit up these guys and see if they're doing okay, because I ended up getting the name of their school and I wanted to check in on them. So I end up doing that, and I end up talking to the guy that I spoke to earlier at the tournament, and he ended up informing me that the other guy, the guy who you ended up seeing in the beginning of this video, actually had a concussion. And later on, I would speak to their coach, and he would also say that not only did he have a concussion, but he also had a ruptured eardrum. I want to remind you, this was billed as a light contact tournament. Not only did I speak to their coach about injuries, but one thing he told me is that one of the people who was affiliated with the tournament was one of the coaches, or really just some form of authoritative figure to the Sanda team. And what he ended up telling the Sanda team in Mandarin was essentially to just go hard, to go for their heads. Now, I can't confirm this. This is not a statement of fact or anything like that. This is just something that I heard. But I'll be honest with you, I believe it 100%. The way everything went down, the way that these people seemed to kind of mingle between each other and things like that, and just the general attitudes of all the people involved was very strange at best. So overall, now that I was informed of that potential reality, I have to say that I was very glad that I did not bother to take part in this tournament. In truth, these Sanda guys were decent, but they weren't really that good. They just ended up attacking people who did not know that they were going to be attacked in that way. If you ask me if I think I could have beat them, yeah, I do think that I could have beat them. However, that's not the point of why I left, because at the end of the day, I didn't show up to get into a legitimate fight. I was under the impression for 4 to maybe 6 months that it was going to be light contact. It was going to be friendly. It was going to be a bunch of buddies palling around. And that really brings me to the moral of this video. There's a lot of scumminess in the martial arts world. There's a lot of people who will try to manipulate you. They will try to exploit you. And you, as the fighter, don't have to take every single fight that is thrown your way. You're going to have promoters. You're going to have officials at tournaments. You're going to have a bunch of different people who are going to try to pressure you. They're going to try to shame you. They're going to talk about the way of the warrior, the fighting spirit. You're not a fighter if you don't want to take this fight. It's bullshit. Don't listen to it. You don't got to take any fight that you are not prepared to take. Me, I was not prepared at all. I was not training for a legitimate fight. I was taking it nice and easy. I wasn't trying to get in shape. I wasn't working on my cardio. I wasn't doing any hard sparring leading up to this. And frankly, the week before the tournament, I barely went to the gym at all because I had other things that I had to attend to. So why would I then, in a situation like that, where there is absolutely positively nothing for me to gain, walk into a situation like that and potentially end up getting hit in the head as hard as the other person can? It's pointless and it's stupid. And it's the kind of thing that won't ever stop if we're being real here. However, it needs to be something that is shrank down to a point where it's not really seen as much as it is. Now, I would still love to do some kind of Sanda tournament. I feel that it would be very fun to do. And I would love to do it for the YouTube channel. But this tournament, I will never be going back to. Basically, at this point, I just have to go back to the drawing board and try and find a tournament that's going to be a lot more straightforward than this one. So with that said, I want to say that I apologize. This was not originally the video that I wanted to make, and I really, really wanted to just show you guys a cool martial art and do a cool martial art, but We don't get that this time. But that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like and also subscribe for more. If you have any questions for me, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Scott Sullivan MMA. And until next time, thank you very much for watching and good luck out there.